Hello everyone, my name is Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems, and if you're new here, welcome for the first time. And today we're going to do my September wrap up, which includes the week of weird and all sorts of other stuff. So stay tuned. Okay, so everyone, I had a pretty good month of reading, but I suppose that was more in terms of quantity rather than quality. Although I did read some very good books, I did not find any 5 stars. Nothing really stood out for me. There was one book that came very, very close by one of my favorite authors, but I just didn't give it 5 stars. We'll see why. But yeah, so let's get going with the list. This is in no particular order, and I'm going to start with readathons and stuff like that first. So yeah, let's get going. Oh, and I'm currently reading With Teeth by Brian Keane. Now this is a short story stroke novella, more a short story, and I'm enjoying it. However, the biggest problem with it is it takes so freaking long to get going. Approaching a third of the way, maybe 40%. On my Kindle, and as you can see from the cover, it's sort of a vampire story, and nothing much has actually happened up to this point. Most of the stuff is about, introducing characters, these friends, and where they're from, and their financial difficulties, where they're living and how it's difficult to, make a living. One guy is trying to support his daughter to get to college, that kind of thing. And they decide to start up a meth lab, something illegal, so that they can make enough money. And they're going to do it in this forest. I'm enjoying it, but I'm waiting for the vampire action. So I'll let you know how I feel. Okay everyone, so we're going to start off with a week of weird. It's an awesome event hosted by Jason from Jason's Weird Reads and Crystal from Fiber Artsy, and I always take part in this. It's just fun to read some weird fiction. It's a great crossover with horror, and I read 2 books. Now the first of them is At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. Now you know that I love Lovecraft. I really enjoyed The Color Out of Space. I really enjoyed Call of Cthulhu, and so many more. But At the Mountains of Madness didn't do it for me. It's more like a novel than a novella, and I'm sorry. I know there's some people that love this book, but it's just too damn long and overly descriptive. And it's about a scientific expedition into the Antarctic, and they find like remnants of a lost civilization. But there's incredible atmosphere. Oh wow, lightning, thunder. There is incredible atmosphere, but it is just, in parts it's just too long. And the narrative doesn't go forward like in these other novellas and other stories. It's just this endless description of this civilization and pretty much everything. And it gets a lot better in the end. It gets more tense, it gets more exciting. But I'm sorry for those that love this novella stroke novel, long. This did not do it for me. And it was kind of a drag to get through. Although I did finally manage to finish it. Gave it 3 stars. And pretty much everything else that I've read by Lovecraft I've given 5 stars. So that didn't work for me, sorry. And the second book that I read for the week of weird is The Worm and His Kings by Hailey Piper. Now I read this book because I absolutely love this collection of short stories, something about the unfortunate elements of my anatomy by Hailey Piper, which was freaking brilliant. And I have to say, this story is about Monique, okay, and her girlfriend is dragged by this monster with talons that keeps going ooh, ooh, and dragged into underground, okay, below New York City. And yeah, there's some crazy cultists and weird creatures, weird monsters, and she's determined to find her girlfriend. A lot of the story, at the beginning of the story, I didn't feel immersed into the story. I didn't feel kind of connected with it, struggled a bit. But the longer I read, the more this tale kind of dug the talons into my mind, and yeah, I really started enjoying it. And the ending is an absolute trip. So yeah, it's highly recommended. I think this is kind of the beginning of the series, I'm not sure. But yeah, thoroughly recommended. I really enjoyed the story. And that is The Worm and His Kings by Hailey Piper. Next up I read The Manitou by Graham Masterton. Now this was just a fun 70s kind of sleazy, silly, horror, gory, yeah, piece of fiction, which is definitely not politically correct. Some kind of warning if you kind of get offended easily by just racism, sexism, anything from the 70s, you might not enjoy this. But then again, if you watch my channel, you probably will enjoy this, because yeah, it's a product of its time. And this was part of a read for the 70s kind of horror club that we're doing where every month. And this is hosted by Greg from another Bibliophile Reads, excuse me. And yeah, every month we read a book from the 70s. And this month it was The Manitou. And we do a video at the end of the month, or in this case going to be the end of the week. And we're going to talk about the book in a lot of detail. And I have to say, this is probably my least favorite of the 3 books I've read so far, but it was still a lot of fun. It's about the psychic, who's kind of a fraud, and he gets involved with this woman who gets a growth on her neck, like a tumor, and it starts growing very rapidly, and it becomes something living, and there's going to be life. Yeah, it's alive, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, just not as great as the other books I've read so far in this journey, and not as great as a lot of the other Graham Masterton books that I've read. It was his debut, but it was still stupid fun, and there's some good body horror, and you find out what's growing in his neck, this thing that's happening to this woman. Yeah, and it doesn't work out well for a lot of people. So that is The Manitou by Graham Masterton. Enjoyable. Okay, and the 4th book is entirely out of my comfort zone, and I read it as part of a banned books project for MJ at Reading Is Life, and that is A Court of Thorn and Roses, or ACOTAR for short, and that's by Sarah Maas, and I surprisingly enjoyed this book. It was a lot darker and grittier than I expected, because it is a romantasy. So it's kind of a combination of fantasy and romance, a little bit of sleaze, although there's not much in this first book. A couple of sex scenes, but kind of underplayed a little bit. But I had a fun time with this book, and yeah, I'm not going to say I'm going to recommend it to my particular audience, but I enjoyed it. It is grittier and it's darker than I expected, with these nasty fairies, psychotic fairies, these psychotic kind of sexy fairies, good looking fairies, I don't know what you want to call them. But yeah, I had a fun time with it. Kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, although not really. Goes to some weird places. Am I going to read the second book? You shall wait and see. Okay people, and I'm probably going to have to hurry up a bit now because the big storm's coming. And the next book I read was Garbology by Troy Craddock and Ollie, in collaboration with Ollie from Criminology. And I had a lot of fun with this book. It's compilation of stories by booktubers and all sorts of other people that kind of gave in their stories in time. Could have been me as well, but I'm terrible with that. Maybe I'll do it in future. Got a story in me waiting to come out. But anyway, this book is about werewolves, cryptids. I'm going to take my glasses off for this. Werewolves, cryptids, gangsters, zombies, hitman, dancing puppets, ghosts, killers, demons, and all sorts of other creatures. And of course it is gory, it's bloody, it's nasty, it's sexy, and you got to check your trigger warnings. Well, if you're going to read this book, just consider, that you don't have any serious triggers, because it just goes there. But it was a lot of fun, really enjoyed it, and I'd like to maybe take part some future year when I get more time for writing. Just make the time, and that is garbology. Okay, next up we got You Like It Darker by Stephen King. Got glasses on, and I'm going to show you the book. That's one of the physical books that I've got for this month, and it was a lot of fun. I did a full review on this where I not just rated it, but I actually ranked all the stories in the book, and there was not a story that I did not enjoy on some level, even the lowest ranked. And really there were actually some really good 5-star stories in there. That is amongst some of the best stuff that Stephen King has written. Is it as dark as I expected? Is it as dark as perhaps Pet Sematary or Cujo or even The Shining? I don't think so. But considering Stephen King's age and maturity, he touches on some very dark themes, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. So I'm going to link that video at the end of the video, so you can check out that review. But it was a lot of fun. Next up we have Pray Lied Eve by Lydia Peever, who is an awesome booktuber, and she runs a channel called Typical Books, and it's 3 tales, and I really enjoyed her writing. It's just kind of beautiful, kind of haunting, and what impressed me about these 3 stories is that they're so different. And in addition to all of this, I actually had a chat with her on my channel where we talked about reading, we talked about horror, we talked about her experiences as an author, and we talked about a number of other things as well. And I'm going to link our chat at the end as well, so you can check it out. But what are these 3 stories about that I enjoyed so much? The one is about, a woman is haunted by these fingerprints that appear in a basement door, and every day she goes and scrubs them off, and then the next day they appear, and this just continues. It's like this obsession with these fingerprints, and then there's another kind of haunting that begins, and it's a very interesting story. And the second story is the sighting. This guy sights these mysterious big ice bomb things, bigger than the size of a hand, and they fall to the earth in time with these church bells ringing. When they ring, kind of in unison. It's all these churches around the specific area, with towers and with big church bells. Those ones, with the rope. I know it was a lot of fun. In fact, that was my favorite story. It was incredibly tense and suspenseful. And the last one is about this girl who can talk to animals. When she's a young girl, when she grows up, and the animals grow up to be these terrifying demons that have demands of her. The ending is just gruesome, like seriously kind of splatterpunk gruesome. So it's a lot of fun. I'm planning on reading a novel, but I enjoyed myself. So that is Pray Lied Eve. Okay, the next book is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. And this might confuse a few people. You might think that I absolutely gave this 5 stars. Awesome read. yeah, I had mixed feelings. And I'll tell you why. And I can see why this book is very polarizing. Because on the one hand, it's incredibly well written. And the story is very engaging. I enjoyed the story. And I enjoyed the characters. But I wanted it to go darker. It's not really a horror. It's kind of a thriller. And it didn't go to plan. I expected a lot more from it in that sense. And another thing, I can't really say any more because you can give away spoilers. But I had a criticism about this book because people talk about the huge twists and huge stuff that happens. I'm sorry, I could see it coming. I wouldn't say a mile away, but I saw it coming, and I just kept expecting something different, something more. I don't know if the word cosmic is the right word, but I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil it. And then there was another criticism, but if I even mention this, then it's gonna, yeah, I don't want to spoil the story. All I say is that you go in blind to this book, and I can guarantee you'll probably have a better time than me. I'm not going to say I did not enjoy this book. I think I'd give it 3.5 stars, but it was not my favorite. And like I say, if I was going to give a spoiler review, I'll tell you why, and I think you would understand. And perhaps some of you that have read it can kind of guess, but it did not do it for me, like other stories. But it's not the last I'm going to be reading by this author, because she's got a way with words. I like to kind of flick between the different points of view of this characters. Yeah, really enjoyed the story, but there was something that let me down. So yeah, I wanted it to go to higher places, different places. Okay, so that's The Last House on Needless Street. Okay, and finally we're going to get to my book of the month. Now, this is a tough one to talk about. It was a heartbreaking read, a very, very difficult read, uncomfortable read, and a very emotional read for me. And I keep thinking I need to change it 5 stars, maybe I should. And it's by one of my favorite authors who just continuously impresses me, and that's Chad Lutsky. The subject matter is triggering for some, pedophilia, and also kind of a sex market thing, sex trafficking, and it's about these 3 girls, and they're taken against their will, and it's about the trauma that they go through. They have this opportunity to escape, and the youngest is 9, I mean, come on, and it's absolute hell they go through. But what I love about Chad Lutsky, he doesn't dwell on that hell that they're going through. He dwells on their trauma and what happens to them and their struggle to overcome it, and how they stick together to try and, they just want to live a better life because they get the opportunity to escape. But the scars, do they run too deep? He just writes damaged characters so well. I mean, you have no idea. Every book there's damaged characters and situations, and he writes them with like a kind of tenderness, and yeah, he just draws you in, and you care, you feel about the characters, about the story, and even the hardest heart will be broken by the story. you empathize with these characters and what they're going through, and you just hope that there's a happy ending. Maybe there's not, I'm not going to tell you, but I love this story, and I've loved everything that he has written, and I highly recommend the author. So that is, The Pale White by Chad Lutsky. And I'm going to continue to read by this author probably next month as well. Well, that's tomorrow. I heard one of his best books, which is going to be on my pile of possibilities, is Flies and Something, Orphan Homes, whatever, I can't remember. That's going to be on my pile of possibilities tomorrow. And yeah, and finally just a reminder that that's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to do my super spooky pile of possibilities for October. So stay tuned for that. Okay everyone, so that's my September wrap-up. Have you read any of those stories? Let me know your thoughts, but be respectful. I mean, if Last House on Needless Street's your best book ever, then be respectful. Just let me know why. And yeah, I really look forward to chatting to you next time. I hope tomorrow, depending on the weather, depending on other stuff. But yeah, take care.